translation from one of my students. Some of you will probably remember that we've done one from the same, from the same website, and it's the same student. He translated the following article. I've just put a link to the article, and it's from the Военно-промышленный courier. It's a war industry courier, or military industrial. I'm not sure, being honest, how to translate it, but we will look at this. In fact, I can give you a quick. I can even share the original very quickly. Hold on. So it's this one here. This is the original. And we're going to look at the translation that the student's done. Now, I'm just looking at corrections, really, rather than doing the translation myself, certainly not. But I have looked at the original, and perhaps sometimes I'll use that to justify my corrections. But let's have a look. So the Sea Breeze 2021 military exercise is a good opportunity for Russia to practice. Now, I changed in repelling NATO's attack. We don't need practice in here. We just have to practice repelling and then a NATO attack, or maybe to practice repelling NATO's forces. And it's because it used the word SEAL in the original, and I thought you could translate that as NATO's forces, but I'm not sure again, but you can say repelling a NATO attack, certainly. Mid-June 2021 was rich in different events of high military and political significance. I like this word significance, really. We don't really say meanings here, but we can certainly say, yeah, different events of high military and political significance. The one which stands out most of all, no commas here. Yeah, don't think that every time you have a which clause, you need commas. You only need commas if it's a non-defining relative clause. But this is defining which one. Look at it like this. The one is really vague. Yeah, it's a really vague. I mean, what does it mean, the one? It could mean anything, right? It's a really vague pronoun. And we describe that pronoun with a defining relative clause, which is why we could use the word that as well as which. We can say the one that stands out most of all. And that shows us that it's definitely a defining relative clause. So we mustn't use commas here. And this is a problem which came up a few times in this translation. So do be careful with relative clauses. You can watch my videos on defining and non-defining relative clauses. I've made a few on this topic. And you can also find this topic in my grammar book, which I like to talk about, so that if anyone else out there would like to buy it, it's still selling really well. So please do pick up a copy if you'd like to know more about relative clauses. But yeah, the one which stands out most of all was, sorry, I'm going to have to bring it back up, was the ostentatious violation of Russian territorial waters near the Crimea by the British HMS Defender. It has proved, I would always say proven here, by the way, but it's just, I like that third form, but proved is okay. It has been proved that the ship's commanding officer made this move on the direct order of his high command. Okay, now I would always say on. I'd use that preposition, and I did do a check, because I always do with prepositions. You never know with prepositions whether you are in a minority. And I looked it up on Ngrams. I really recommend Google Ngrams if you're wondering about which preposition to use sometimes. It will help sometimes. And I looked up at the direct order of, on the direct order of, and by the direct order of, and on was clearly much higher. And you could see them all changing over time, but on is certainly the modern option. So on the direct order of his high command and pursuant to a great decision of Great Britain's top leadership. Yeah, and of course, this is referring to the Prime Minister. Okay, and following this accident, sudden loss. You could say following the accidental sudden loss, you can say that, but I quite liked, and the subsequent loss, looking at the original again, I thought that this was clearer, but you can certainly say, and following the accidental sudden loss, so that would be okay, but you can say, and the subsequent loss of a top secret 50-page document. Now, 50-page ought to be hyphenated there, just because it's a compound adjective. I'm not sure if I've got it on changes. All right. Let's try it again. no, it's not. Well, we can do that. A 50-page document. Let's put it back on track changes just in case we make any more. Okay, now here you do need a comma for the non-defining relative clause, yeah, which clearly shows. So, okay, well, you could get rid of the comma here if you want to, because you could argue that it's defining which top secret 50-page document. But because you've said 50-page document, I can't imagine there being many 50-page documents. So you can certainly put it in as well. You know, sometimes with relative clauses, I want to make it really clear this, sometimes the division between defining and non-defining, you know, it's not so clear with that sentence. It could be either. And in that case, both are possible and it's up to you. But here, yeah, I personally would put it in just because there aren't usually many 50-page documents. So I'd keep it in, and then which clearly shows, or from which it follows, again, I just thought that seemed quite close to the original, but that the decision to take this step had been made at the level of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And I put this in because he was in the original again. So had been made at the level of Prime Minister Boris Johnson, comma. Yeah, so this is why we definitely need commas around the non-defining relative clause. It makes it much clearer. And then we've got, and the subsequent gloss of a 50-page secret, of a top secret 50-page document just completes the overall picture. Yeah, and that's nice. But the mere fact of publishing these documents demonstrates that there are serious rifts inside the ruling British elite. And we do need an article there, the elite, the ruling British elite. It's very definite. The Russian border patrol vessel cracked down on the activities of the British destroyer by firing off warning shots from a 30mm automatic gun. And the Su-24 fighter bomber dropped 4,250 kilogram bombs ahead of the intruder's course. It appears that the British command had not anticipated such a severe response by the Russian fleet, sounds more natural to me, and the Coast Guard naval units. And then I highlighted this because I thought it needed to be changed a little bit. It would read more natural if it were reordered. It's written here, you've got written here, because of a long delay after which the Brits tried to give some plausible reasons for the accident. That's okay, but I preferred, since any plausible explanations from the British side, perhaps I should say British, not English, sorry about that, from the British side, for what had happened, only came after a long delay. Also, Boris Johnson and other representatives of the British establishment announced that this act pursued the aim of non-recognition of Russian sovereignty over the Crimea, and that similar activities would be repeated in the future. In its response, the Russian side warned that it would prevent any violation of its territorial waters in a more determined way. Now, he's got here, which is very conversational, all the way down to, and I know what you mean here, it's very conversational, but you might want to change that in an essay or an article. But people would understand this all the way down to using, all the way down to even using weapons, yeah, in order to hit targets. But I did change this slightly to, yeah, I think without that, you could say even using weapons in order to hit targets, or you could do the following. You could say even going so far as using weapons to kill, or even going so far as using weapons to defeat the enemy. And I think this going so far as was similar to the original that I saw on the original article. Okay, what is HMS Defender capable of? In response, yeah, not as a response, in response, there were claims in the English mass media stating that HMS Defender was able to shoot down up to 20 Su-24 jet bombers. A brief analysis of the tactical and technical performances of the ship allows us to conclude, you need an object after allow, allows us to conclude that there are grounds for, I think this was closer to the original, there are grounds for, it's better than there are reasons for. It seems clear that there are grounds for such statements. It is one of the most powerful destroyers in the world. It is a daring class destroyer, Type 45 in British classification. In total, 6 ships of this class have been built. Each has a full displacement of 8,100 tons. The max speed is 29 knots. The cruising range at 18 knots speed is about 7,000 miles. We usually say at a certain speed. The armament of this destroyer is purely defensive. I saw Chester in the original, so I thought it was more like purely defensive rather than mostly defensive. Therefore, its main task or its main purpose, it might suit this better, its main purpose is the air defense of the fleet. Yeah, I put the fleet there instead of the surface fleet air defense. The air defense of the fleet is nice and clear. Hence, the most advanced subsystem of the ship is its air defense system. It is built around the Palms air defense system, which was developed. Now, this is a good relative clause. It's non-defining. Yeah, it's non-defining because you remember the earlier clause was not. It was defining because it was defining a really vague noun, the one. The one could be anything. Yeah, this one is non-defining because it can't define which Palms air defense system. Yeah, it can't. There's only one Palms air defense system, whereas the one is really vague. It could be anything, the one. And that's why we needed a defining relative clause. We needed no comma, the one that most of all, yeah, I think that was something like that. And this one, we do need a comma because it is really specific. Yeah, so look at the first noun when you've got a which clause, the noun that it's describing, and ask yourself, is that noun vague? Does it need to be defined? Or is it specific, in which case you can't define which one? So this is a non-defining relative clause, which was developed together with France and Italy. But the British version differs from the Italian and French ones in the utilization of, I often talk about the noun of noun, in the utilization of the newest British radar, Samson. And I'd put a comma in there because you've got, the newest British radar is clear. It's one noun phrase, and then you've got another noun phrase. This is an A positive, and it's a non-defining A positive because there's only one newest British radar, and that one is the Samson. The destroyer is fitted with a single launch pad, comma, for the A positive, the silver A50, comma, made of 48 cells containing the mid-range missiles Aster 15, range of fire up to 30 kilometers, and the long-range missiles Aster 30 with a range of fire up to 120 kilometers. Both missile types are equipped with a combined guidance system, which includes, at a mid-course phase, inertial guidance with radio command, course correction. I preferred it course correction, and I found this on Yandex Translate, and I preferred it to heading correction. It sounded much clearer to me what was going on. Radio command, course correction, via, I preferred to by, via radio signals. Via is more like through than by. Via radio signals from the ship's Samson radar and an active seeker guidance at the terminal phase. Don't know what that means, but sounds right. This allows the missiles to hit air targets beyond radar horizon, but only according to, or maybe using, I wasn't sure, I didn't like with, only using external sources of target designation. It should be noted that these AD missiles are universal. And again, I saw universalna on the original, and that sounded more natural to me than utility, which sounded really quite strange. I think we need an adjective here. They are universal rather than they are utility. That is why, in some circumstances, they can be used against surface targets. To hit an air target at close range, comma, you've got a fronted adverbial phrase here. It's quite long. It's probably worth commaing off. The ship is equipped with two single-barrel 30mm DS-30B gun mounts and two American six-barrel 20mm phalanx gun mounts. This is a compound adjective, and you can tell it is because you've got a number and a noun, and there's no S on the end of that noun. And when you do this in English, you need a hyphen. You need 6-barrel. Yeah, it's like a 6-foot man, 6 foot ought to be hyphenated, or a 20-foot building, or a 6-story building. Yeah, whenever you do that, you know, if you change the sentence around and say the building is 6 stories, no hyphen, because it's just 6 stories, it's just number and noun. But this is a compound adjective. It's not a noun, and that's why it hasn't got an S, because adjectives can't be plural. Okay, air target detection is performed by the S1850 radar with phased array antenna. The radar is installed on the destroyer's aftermast. The radar ensures target detection at a distance of up to 400 kilometers in the air and near space, and simultaneous tracking of up to 1,000 targets. Target tracking and missile guidance is performed by the Samson radar installed on the destroyer's foremast. Due to the high antenna mounting, yeah, you do need an article there for the mounting, and you need a comma to, it's a prepositional phrase at the front. The radar is able to detect low-flying targets at great distances or at long distances. I didn't like at large distances. It doesn't collocate, outranging the American Aegis system. It simultaneously designates 16 targets. Thus, the main AD complex of the ship has 16 target designating channels, and it has neither anti-ship nor strike weapon systems. I'm not sure which one is best here. I think the student was wondering, is it better to say strike weapon systems or offensive weapon systems? I would probably choose offensive if I had to, but I'm not sure because I'm not very familiar with military technology, if I'm honest. Okay, let's keep going. The anti-submarine system is, now you've got represented by, and I can see why in the translation you've done this, but I don't think we'd use it usually in English. I think we just say the anti-submarine system is the powerful sonar. Yeah, the anti-submarine system is the powerful sonar MFS 7000 with its antenna located in the bow dome of the ship. But the ship doesn't have any onboard means of destroying submarines. I changed this from any anti-submarine mean of destruction. I think this is much more natural. Any onboard means of destroying submarines, and I think they had the word onboard in the original. Counter-submarine tasks are performed by the helicopters based on the ship. The ship's hangar allows it, yeah, this word's got to have an object, to accommodate either one big helicopter of the Merlin type or two light ones of the Linux type. I didn't like the one big helicopter. You don't need a the before the number here. The number replaces the really. There are times when you say, if you want to talk about a specific two or a specific three of something, you can say the 4 pens, you know, I've got 4 pens here on my desk. The 4 pens on my desk are all broken. They probably are. They usually are. But you can say the number noun. You can, but you don't need it here. These helicopters are equipped with a dipping sonar and Sonia buoys and armed with the anti-submarine torpedo Stingray. Besides that, these helicopters are capable of performing strikes on small fleet formations using the Sea Skua missiles. This subsonic missile has a 25-kilometer range of fire, and the weight of its warhead is just 35 kilograms. The anti-torpedo system of the destroyer is represented by the SSTD, Surface Ship Torpedo Defense. So again, I don't think we'd really say represented by, if I'm honest, so I'm going to put brackets around it. Is, I think we'd just say is. Yeah, is the SSTD. Besides AD weapon systems, daring-type ships are fitted with highly effective electronic warfare systems, launch pads which can launch a decoy target or a target imitator, or an active jamming station, Mark 251. This jamming station is launched to some distance from the ship, and after that it automatically tunes to the frequency of the incoming homing missile radar, I think. The frequency and not a frequency. Maybe if it's one of many, okay, maybe it is a here. I'm not certain. One of the two. If you mean it's only the frequency of the incoming missile, only that frequency, then we use the. But if you want to say that it tunes to a frequency, one of the many frequencies of that homing missile, that still sounds strange to me. I think it will be the. To engage surface targets and even air targets, the destroyer is armed with the 114mm BAE Systems Mark 8 gun mount. The range of fire of the gun is up to 22 kilometers. The rate of fire is 26 rounds per minute. The ammunition load is 800 rounds. What is a HMS Defender capable of in real practice? Yeah, or what indeed is HMS Defender? I would say maybe what is HMS Defender really capable of? Yeah, you could do it like that. But I don't mind in practice. Yeah. In fact, probably not in real practice, actually. In practice is the expression. So what is HMS Defender capable of in practice, or what is HMS Defender really capable of? It's something like that. Thus, we can assume that HMS Defender is quite able to shoot down 30 or more Russian jets, but this is really feasible only in training or in simulated battles, not in real warfare. Warfare is uncountable. In modern warfare, This ship will be attacked by 1 or 2 squadrons. I didn't like flights. I think this is squadrons. Yandex gave me squadrons. Each squadron is made up of 3 or 4 aircraft using anti-radar missiles with the assistance of special EW aircraft flying beyond the ship's AD range. The missile salvo of the squadrons will blind the ship, because you're joining 2 main clauses with a fanboys, and its combat management system will be inoperable. After this, the remaining aircraft, or the rest of the aircraft, will just, I think merely is better here, will merely have to sink the vulnerable ship. Yeah, we'll merely have to sink the yeah, I think you can use just though. We'll just have to sink the we'll just have to sink. We'll just have to sink the vulnerable ship. Yeah, I understand why you're using this adverb. You're trying to say that that's all that you have to do. It's really easy. But yeah, merely works. We'll merely have to sink the vulnerable ship. Moreover, the attack could be performed without any aircraft loss, not in case if the ship is not protected by jet fighters. You could say in the event that, if you prefer. In the event that, something like that. It sounds quite formal, but it works in the event that the ship is not protected by. But if works here, if the ship is not protected by jet fighters. Under the British flag. Against this background, the Sea Breeze 2021 exercise takes place in the Black Sea and in the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. The exercise involves 32 ships, surface ships and submarines in the Black Sea, and up to 100 combat aircraft of different types from the tactical and strategic and naval aviation of NATO countries, mostly of the Black Sea region. The USA are represented by, it works here, the Surface Action Group, composed of 2 destroyers of the Arleigh Burke class. The backbone of the fleet participating in the exercise in the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea is the British Aircraft Carrier Group, headed by the pride of the British Navy, HMS Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier. The escort ships include the above-mentioned HMS Defender and the same type HMS Diamond, HMS Kent and Richmond frigates. Also the American destroyer Sullivans and the Dutch frigate Evertson. Besides surface ships, the British aircraft carrier group includes the newest atomic submarine of Astute class, which is armed. Now, again, you need a comma. The newest atomic submarine of Astute class, there's only one of those. We can't define which one. So this is just, which is armed with Tomahawk long-range cruise missiles. It's a non-defining relative clause. The air fleet of HMS Queen Elizabeth, according to open sources, is made up, and yeah, not the open sources, you've got just open sources, because later on you say the open sources a lot and it sounds strange. Just according to open sources right here, is made up of 18 SVTOL F-35B jets, 8 of which are British and the rest are American. Now, this is actually a non-defining relative clause as well, which is why you need that comma there as well. So well done. The latter is a very interesting fact, which should be evaluated, or which will be fathomed out, which will be apprehended, which will be fully grasped, which will be explored later in this article. Yeah, you could say one of those instead of which should be evaluated. It might be the first time in American history when American units were assigned or have been assigned, sounds better to me, just from the tone of the article, have been assigned to a foreign command. Yeah, the first time in history that American units have been assigned. Yeah, not were, must be have been. Missed that one, sorry. The destroyer and the aircraft, while operating as a part of the aircraft carrier group, should be subordinated to the British commander. Nothing like this has ever happened before, so the British are in charge here. Back to Cold War times. Okay, we've got quite a lot more, so I might split this up into 2 lessons. I think it's just quite a long translation. So I'll do another bit in a little bit, perhaps later tomorrow, or perhaps on Sunday, actually. I'm not sure. But thanks for coming, everybody.